is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. He once told me, Hambone, don't hate the player, hate the game. Stu Horvath.
How you doing, Hambone?
Listen, man, we've been going many years on this. Sometimes it's hard to get the joke there, but I feel like I got it there. A little over the plate, but I think it works.
Yeah, it's fine. It actually, no, it works really well.
I could take it or leave it. How you doing today?
Surviving. The allergies have come for me.
Yeah, I know, me too.
It's terrible. Like the scratchies in my nose and my throat. Wanted to sleep all day.
All I wanted to do was sleep all day. But I'm still moving into my new office. Apologies to our listeners. Last week's episode didn't sound so great. I'm in my new office now where I'll be recording pretty much indefinitely the Vintage RPG Podcast. And I will put pictures up when I'm a little more situated with the movers are coming to move more stuff tomorrow. And this is now Hambone HQ, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey.
You can't go wrong with like dedicated office space.
I tell you, man, it already feels good. And plus windows. I live in a basement apartment, so this is
you got windows, you got wood paneling, you live in the dream.
It's like a reverse basement because it's like on the third floor of a building, but the walls it's wall to wall wood paneling, and it is awesome.
Love it.
So what are we talking about today, Stu?
We're talking about the novel that I just finished reading. Man, I went on a journey with this thing. Somebody recommended this book to me a while back.
Right.
I can't remember if they said that it was good or bad, but they said that I should read it or that I should check it out at any rate. And I found a copy that there's two different covers, basically. One has a painted cover, which is the one that I got. And the other is like this very bad, like mid 80s era. It's a UK book. So mid 80s era for the UK feels like, I don't know, 77, 78.
Yeah, it feels right.
They're a little behind. They're always a little behind the curve in terms of like their aesthetic look, and it's just this really bad sort of like kid looking at himself in the mirror photograph cover. Honestly, if that was the only one that was available to me, I wouldn't have bought the book. I would never have read it. The cover of the book matters. I just can't sit around reading a book that looks not cool.
Yeah, that's like the cover of a book that screams like Timmy Don't Talk to Strangers or something like creepo like that,
It's selling the product accurately.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a book called Game Players. It's by Stephen Bowkett. It first was published in 1986. Let me read you the back. Let's crush skulls, we say in the game, and in the heat of battle, all your problems are solved. For the 4 game players, the characters they become in their fantasy role-playing adventures are almost real. As the heroic Jan Wildblood searching for the Dream Dawn in the magical realm of Entropos, John Warner escapes from problems at school and at home. With Sean, Katie, and Raygun, he enters a land where earthly laws count for nothing and the Root Master holds absolute power. But when the horrors that befall Jan Wildblood are mirrored by disturbing incidents in real life, John and the other players must discover where the game ends and the nightmare begins.
Okay. All right.
One of those books.
We got to unpack this a little bit. First off, Entropos sounds pretty cool as far as a fantasy setting goes. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Secondly, though, wow. I feel like, again, as a guy walking around with the moniker Hambone, I feel like, when you have a guy playing D&D, baseline, your nickname is Raygun. Whatever character you create is just going to be a hat on a hat.
Raygun. Raygun's an interesting character because he's sort of like the kid that nobody wants to play with, and like he's a little bit bullied. And his name is literally just Raymond Gunn. So like they just call him Raygun. So like he's introduced, it's like Raygun. Like this guy's gonna be like a character, and he's not really. He's just like he's a sweet kid, actually. So yeah. So this is a book that's in the grand tradition of the microgenre of the. Can they tell if the game is real or not?
Oh lordy.
So, and born out of the James Dallas Egbert disappearance in 1979, really sensationalized by two novels. Rona Jaffe's Mazes and Monsters is the more famous of the two, which was made into the film for television, starring Tom Hanks in his first major role.
Classic.
Yeah. There's a second novel, also from 1981, by John Coyne, who wrote a number of horror novels. His was called Hobgoblin. It is moderately better than Mazes and Monsters. Mazes and Monsters is a terrible novel. Don't ever read it. Don't watch the movie. If you listen to that episode, we suffered so you didn't have to. Never watch that movie. The book is terrible. Hobgoblin at least is well written. It's daft when it comes to like the idea of his main character being unable to kind of differentiate the game from reality, and like I don't know, it broadly plays with like a fictionalized version of schizophrenia that like just that's not how it works. But it's okay though for a potboiler horror novel. It also has a better cover than Mazes and Monsters. So those happened to come out in 1981. Bowkett's book Game Players came out in 1986. So 5 years had kind of passed. And really, the only two books that I knew that were really about this idea that Dungeons and Dragons would, mentally manipulate its players, those are the only two books that I knew about until I got the Game Players. And the back cover really sells it like it's going to be more of the same. I've been cleaning out stuff and going through stuff, and I saw this and I was just like, I don't even remember buying this. And the cover, even the painted cover, is not great. It shows John Warner in his like school uniform with a tie, writing on a paper at a desk, and he's sort of gazing into the middle distance. And behind him is Jan Wildblood in his Roman centurion uniform, and waving a sword. And there's lightning in the background, and castles and tower and mountains and whatever. It's better than the photo cover, but it's not
great.
It's not great. It's not. Hobgoblin is of the three. Hobgoblin has the best cover because it has like a little game piece, like blue and black with like blood on it. It's cool. And that book is called Hobgoblin, which is just it's got a lot going for it.
Baseline cool.
But Game Player is actually a good book. I'm shocked to report.
Oh, really? I thought you were like completely like setting this up to be like, oh, and it gets worse.
No, it's I was pleasantly surprised at how not terrible this novel was. I'm not going to say that Bowkett is a fantastic writer. He's a decent writer. There are some groaner lines here and there, but for the most part, he approaches his subject matter with a clarity that I appreciate. He really gets across like a 1980s era school life in the UK. It felt real. The teens felt real. They talked like real teens. Even though it is obviously like a life lesson book. Like it is designed to help kids like feel better about stuff. But even that sort of moral messaging, it's complex, and I appreciate its complexity. And the fantasy sections. So it really is not one of those, can they tell it's a game anymore novels. Everybody knows that it's a game, and people are invested in to varying degrees. You're really set up at the beginning to believe that John is going to be the one who's going to go off the deep end and just believe in this game so much, and it's going to turn his life upside down. But that's not actually the case. He does really invest in the game. His parents are going through a divorce, or they're about to go through a divorce. His older sister is in a serious relationship, is going to be moving out of the house soon, leaving him alone to deal with this situation. And he feels very unmoored in his life. And the only thing that is stable for him is the game, even though the people playing it are very tumultuous. And he constantly is drifting into the fantasy world, which is a familiar sensation for anybody who's in a really good role-playing game. You bring it with you away from the table, and you think about what you're going to do, what your character's going to do, what the mysteries mean. And that's basically what he does. And he's constantly kind of like fantasizing through the persona of Jan Wildblood, what's going on in the game. The game itself is presented somewhat like cringy, But for the most part, it's a pretty decent fictional portrayal of a game that's not unlike Dungeons and Dragons.
So what you're saying is that it actually sounds like it was written by someone who has played the game, unlike most things that would come around the time period where people were just like, oh, it looks like they're doing that. We understand this and just go for it. And that just makes it like so much worse.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Bowkett didn't have some experience with Dungeons and Dragons. I think that the problems with the portrayal of the game come out of him trying to differentiate his game from the existing game, which puts the root master in. Everybody has these different roles that are hard to kind of like parse because he never really gets into the rules of the game because it's not interesting in the scope of the novel. But you do get the sense that the root master is all powerful, but that the players are also equally powerful, and that there's rules about how they can mitigate what the root master is the dungeon master, what the root master can do. Which I think is actually pretty intriguing because it anticipates a lot of developments that happen in the 21st century in role-playing game design.
Oh, cool. That's neat.
Yeah, about how that, the running of the game power gets shared amongst players in different ways. It feels a little awkward in the book. And honestly, like the cringiest stuff comes from the players themselves, but I actually really like that because they're stupid teens who are like have like these petty rivalries that they're like acting out through the game, and it feels so real. And that's why it's cringy. It's because it does come from a place of like, this is believable. Basically, the kid Raygun joins the group to get away from bullies. The root master is a complete tool bag. And then there's the rich kid Sean, who is like, you think he's okay, but really it is a full-on confrontation between the DM and the head player, Sean. The girl Katie is like gets written out, her character gets killed, and she's not allowed back because you only get one character in the game, which
wow,
is amazing. She's the most reasonable character in the book, and she kind of has a thing for John and grounds him in a way that sort of saves him from the imminent conflict that comes to a head between Sean and Jeff. Jeff is the DM, the root master. Those two guys definitely take the game too seriously, but it's not in that Mazes and Monsters. Like, they know it's just a game, but like, this is the competition between these two people. They're going to use the game as the proxy battlefield for their conflict for as long as they can, until they can't anymore. And it really boils over into a comfort. They play in downtime at school in one of the science labs, and there is an attempt to cause an explosion in the climax of the book during a big school dance function. It really, and saying it out loud makes it kind of seem like, oh, that sounds terrible. But in the moment, it really works, and it's really dumb. And like the whole resolution like undercuts itself in a really kind of realistically awesome way. I don't know, man. This book, how did this book become? It's actually good. And there's like, the best part about it, dude, is
right?
The fantasy sections are actually really good and clever. There's one long section where they go into this city that ages them, and it turns out that the city is like the camouflage for this giant subterranean creature. And it's so good. It's such a good setup. The monster's terrifying, and like it's just, all of it works really well. I don't like, this book should be trash. And I read it in a day and a half, and I'm just like, this thing is great. Why don't more people know about it?
Wow, it really like got its hooks in you.
Yeah.
So what happens to it? I mean, like, was he trying to cast like fireball at the school dance? I mean, that's a hell of a party trick.
No, basically, like, the game ends ahead of the dance, but like, not really. It ends with the DM defeated and the players win, and they kind of go off. And then, but like, the DM has like a temper tantrum, and he throws all this stuff, and like their miniatures get lost. So Sean convinces John to go back to the room that night during the dance to get their miniatures. And of course, Jeff is there, and all the bullies are there, and it's like a big standoff, like high noon.
Spoilers, everybody. We're about to say the end of the book because I'm never going to read it, and I'm like dying to know.
I'm pretty sure. So I read it in a blur, and I'm not sure. Well, here, hold on. I have it right in front of me. I can look. I don't remember what Jeff does to sort of make the situation worse.
It's just being Jeff. Just Jeff being
I
Jeff,
mean,
man.
kind of. Jeff sucks. Jeff is all the toxic traits of like the worst dungeon masters wrapped into one character. So Jeff is just like he basically has gone back to the room to play the game without the players so that his villain wins.
So
And
he
like
went back to a dark classroom to play with himself.
and they interrupt him and he's freaking out and he's like about to get violent. And the solution for Sean is to turn on the gas jets at the lab tables, filling the room with methane
Oh, because that's helpful.
and threatening to like blow the place up and like just playing chicken. And it's just this ridiculous standoff where like Sean's John at the end is just like I could, you know, like you need oxygen to explode methane. Like if somebody and he like lights a lighter and it just goes poof and it like smells really bad and like blinds everybody, but it doesn't like catch fire the way that you think that it's going to. And then he grabs his miniature and walks off, and it's really great because these other two idiots look like idiots. And then he goes and kisses the girl, and it's great.
Oh, then he goes and kisses the girl.
Yeah.
So at least something happens.
No, it really worked for me. I mean, like it's not it isn't a great book, but like for what it is, as like a slice of life kind of coming of age story that involves Dungeons and Dragons or a Dungeons and Dragons stand-in, it actually pulls it all off pretty sincerely. And I was really impressed with how not bad the book was. Not a classic, not high literature, but definitely better than Mazes and Monsters or Hobgoblin, and worthy of your time if you see it in the secondhand shop. But maybe not if it's the cover with the two mirror looking at each other cover, because that one's bad.
That sounds pretty creepy. Well, very cool. Stu, do you have any final thoughts on this literary masterpiece?
I like the fact that it took the UK like that 5 extra years to get there. You know, like it's just like I said earlier, it always felt to me that the Brits were about 5 years behind us aesthetically, and here we are with the game players in 1986, 5 years after everybody was upset about the will the game corrupt the youth kind of movement. But you know, they got there eventually is the important part, and they honestly did it with more style than us, so got to give it to them.
Well, here. Well, this has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG podcast. Stu, where can the people find you on the internet?
So you can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. I will certainly be posting about this at some point.
Sounds good to me. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I've been posting more because I've been going out places. I've been doing more things, and that's kind of feels nice. It's actually having to talk at the Geek Flea, which, by the way, folks, thanks to our listeners who showed up at the Geek Flea to say what's up. We were stoked to meet you. That really did mean the world to us. It's always a weird moment for me when someone like comes up to me and says, "Oh my God, I love your show." But
it's like, what?
Yeah, because it's just like we're just a bunch of dorks just like talking to each other on the across Zoom and making a podcast. But like from my heart, from Stu, like thank you so much for taking the time to just say what's up, because it really does it made my whole week. And did I tell you, Stu, by the way, I ran into a dude at Disneyland who took my photo, and when I said, "Oh, thanks for taking the photo," he said, "May the dice always roll in your favor."
You just randomly found like a guy?
Well, so we went to Disneyland on our honeymoon, and there's people around the park. You can get like the Genie Plus and they'll like take your photo and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's taking a photo of me outside of like Avengers Land or whatever, and Avengers Training Center, whatever it is. And he takes a photo. I was like, "Oh, dude, thank you so much." He's like, "May the dice always roll in your favor," and I was like, totally hit me with my own catchphrase, and thank you for that. That was very, very cool. So
I can't. What are the odds of you traveling and like asking somebody to take your pic or having somebody take your picture and it having them be somebody who's listened to the show?
I have no idea, but you know what, man?
It's wild.
In the words of the great Han Solo, "Don't tell me the odds." But yeah, thanks so much, everyone. We had a great time at the Geek Flea. Yeah, I'll be out and about in the world more. No more conventions for me until August, but I'll be telling you a little more about that as details come available. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, want to become a patron, patreon.com/vintagerpg. We got a killer Discord community, and every day I'm thankful for it because we have such great conversations over there. And if you want to buy some of the books that Stu's talked about on this show over the last 7 years, he's unloading quite a lot of them over in the Swap Meet channel in our Discord. We also have early release episodes. You get them usually about Friday or Saturday, depending on when we record them in the week. Stu has a game at a certain tier. You can play West Marches with Stu. For me, I've been running a monthly different RPG. This last week, I ran Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. Now that May's coming up, who knows? You get to vote on it, and then I will run it for you. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.